Welcome in, everybody. First live. There's a couple pieces of content that I want to go over tonight. I don't know. I'm here in LA. It's 8:53. I know it might be late, but I'm gonna try to start coming on live and just just try to engage with you guys. I mean, I know this channel is fairly new, but just trying to. I want to see how this live or how these live situations are gonna go. So, the first video we're gonna be discussing is this Frank Turek video. He was talking with this atheist, and she had some pretty interesting things to say. So I definitely want to get into this one first. She had some, I would say, pretty bone-chilling things to say. Let's check it out.
So you think I'm going to hell?
Sure.
So I thought your argument was very interesting, especially as someone who has taken a logic course, has studied logic before. Mm-hmm. Your logical reasoning was interesting to me, and I'm not sure I exactly follow it. Okay. Your 2 points especially, and your 3 little points there you had for the credibility of the Bible.
The New Testament? Yeah. You want me to put them up there again?
Sure.
I can do that.
Yeah, for sure. I thought those are especially interesting because I'm not exactly sure, out of all the arguments for God, why you would choose those ones. But let me ask you one especially about the eyewitness is very interesting to me. Do you believe that L. Ron Hubbard is a real person?
Well, he was a real person. You're talking about the guy that wrote Dianetics and is the father of Scientology?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Is Scientology real?
Well, I don't believe the beliefs of Scientology are real, but there are Scientologists, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I thought that was an interesting point then when you were talking about the historical evidence for people like Herod, for people like Pilate in the Bible. I agree. Those are real people. However, I do not think that your argument that you're making regarding them existing in the Bible and them also being real people actually argues for the credibility of the Bible itself. I'm not sure it argues for the existence of God itself or, the credibility of Christianity.
Yeah, just because somebody is real doesn't mean it makes it Christianity credible. I think when he was alluding to those being real people, it's always a response to when people always say, they'll just lazily say, the Bible's a fairy tale, the Bible's just made up. How can you believe in the Bible? I think him saying that these are real people is a response to that. But she's right. You can't claim Christianity is credible because the people in the Bible are real. You have to take the claim of what's the proposition that Christianity is making. And what us Christians believe is that Jesus Christ rose from the dead, baby. He rose from the dead, baby. Let's keep going.
Just using that.
Well, you're right. That's because I don't just use that in the book. I glossed over the arguments for the existence of God to get to this since it's Easter week.
Sure.
And I can't cover it all. But if we had more time, I could talk about the fine-tuning of the universe and the necessary for intelligence to create the first life and new life forms, and the moral argument for God, and the argument from laws of logic and consciousness and laws of mathematics, those transcendental arguments, if we had more time to get into the arguments for God.
Yes, sir. I'm actually familiar with all of those.
Okay.
And still, I'm an atheist, actually, even being familiar with all of those. But my real question for you right now is specifically on these.
I always want to ask people, if you still an atheist, agnostic people, I can understand, right? Like, you open-minded to it. You're familiar with the arguments for God's existence, morality, design, cosmology, all these different things. But atheists, I really want to know what is it you believe in? Like, what's your best explanation for all those realities that are existing in the world? If you don't believe in it being a creator, I want to know. I would love to ask her that.
These eyewitnesses for the resurrection. You argue a lot for the resurrection. Now, a lot of the New Testament, the earliest times the Gospels were ever written down and published were in the 70s AD. People who were writing them, like Paul, never met Jesus. I don't think a lot of people know that, but he did not ever meet Jesus.
Okay, well, why do you think, first of all, why do you think the...
Paul never met Jesus? Paul never met Jesus. She's got to be talking about pre-resurrection, because Paul met him obviously during, after the resurrection. But yeah, that kind of threw me for a loop.
The New Testament documents were written in the 70s and 80s.
That is archaeological facts that they have corroborated multiple different accounts and multiple different scholars.
What are the archaeological facts that say the New Testament documents were written in the 70s and the 80s?
Those are dated. They're dated around the time literarily, linguistically. You can look it up. I was just reading before I came here, the scholar Bart Ehrman. He had a really great post about that. I encourage you to look at it. I encourage everyone to look at it, because a lot of those new Gospels, that's the earliest they were written, was 70s AD. Latest was even up until the 120s ADs when they presented.
Yeah, well, I don't think Bart Ehrman's correct about that. And even if he is correct about it, the source material from the documents themselves predate when they were written. For example, even Bart Ehrman would admit that the creed in 1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 to 8, I referred to it very briefly today, that talked about that Paul received what was told to him about who Jesus appeared to. It includes all the people Jesus appeared to, with the exception of the women, and then the 500 others. That particular creed goes all the way back to within a year or two of the alleged resurrection itself. So the data is very old. Paul wrote 1 Corinthians in 55 AD. Even Bart Ehrman would agree with that.
Do you have a source for that?
Bart Ehrman.
I'll go look it up afterwards, for
okay.
sure. And I'll check on it, because that's not what I found personally. But I'm actually interested, too, in that case about those eyewitness accounts. Have you ever had a friend who's told you, a funny story, and they're saying, yeah, I swear this happened. I swear I saw it. But, you're not sure. You weren't there. You don't know. Sometimes people embellish a little bit. So I'm not seeing the necessary connection between me believing these eyewitness accounts. Sure, I suppose that there were definitely people, even if these New Testament authors weren't actually seeing the resurrection themselves, which they weren't.
The thing you can always directly challenge when somebody is saying that they don't believe in eyewitness accounts of Jesus's alleged resurrection is, why did his disciples, or the people who were religiously following him, go from being so incredibly distraught? I mean, their whole entire world was flipped upside down. Their teacher, who they've been following, watching doing miracles and all this stuff, he was just crucified and murdered. Why did they go from being completely devastated to now being so enthused that they are willing to die over what they believe that they saw? And so it was so life-changing that they literally went from they can't believe it to now they're willing to die for it And then that sparked the Christianity movement. What best explains that, man? What in this whole entire earthly reality would explain groups of people doing that? You can't explain it besides a miraculous event happening. Period.
Even if they were talking to people who were, I'm not sure I actually would believe that, or if I'd have any reason to believe them. So my question is to you, what is these actual eyewitnesses, what is their credibility? Like, why should I be compelled to believe them on only their word?
Well, because they suffered greatly for saying what they saw, and they were not predisposed to these beliefs. They held beliefs that were opposite this. They didn't think a man could claim to be God. That was blasphemy. In fact, that's what got Jesus killed. They didn't think one guy would rise from the dead in the middle of time. They thought everyone would rise from the dead at the end of time because that's what Daniel and Isaiah say. So they were not predisposed to believe this. They thought they were God's chosen people. Why would they invent a resurrection story that would get them kicked out of the synagogue and then beaten, tortured, and killed?
I think that same argument, though, could be used for many other religions. I mean, the same thing. If every other major religion...
Such as what?
Sure, such as all of the people who have ever died for Islam, who have ever died for pagan religions, etc., things like that. I mean, I don't think it's a great argument to say, just because someone said, yes, this can get me great bodily harm, but yeah, I'm still going to die for it because I believe in it. I don't think I do not see the causal connection between them doing that, and the argument at hand.
But when people try to make that correlation, people die, similarly in Islam. Yes, they're dying because they believe that is true. They believe that their way is true. But with Christianity, it's different. People are claiming that Jesus never resurrected, and they claim that these disciples died over a lie. You know what I mean? Like, people will die over something they believe is true, but they're not going to give up their life over something that they know is a lie. Like, you can go to jail for, not admitting to something that is a lie and lying about it, right? But to die and then multiple people do that, people don't do that.
And being true.
Why would they die for something they knew was false?
I don't think, sometimes it's the same thing. It's like we were just talking about truth. I think sometimes I believe that they think what they saw was true.
Okay, why would they think Jesus rose from the dead if he didn't? Why would they think that?
Yeah, why would they think that? You can get me on this. If one person is willing to die for it and, maybe he's tripping out, he's hallucinating, or whatever reason you can cause, explain that. But it was groups of people doing the same thing. If it really was a lie, somebody would have gave in, man. Like, come on, man.
Limited scientific knowledge back then, limited secondhand accounts. You hear from a friend of a friend of a friend.
No. The people that saw it, why would Peter be martyred? Why would Paul be martyred? Why would James be martyred?
For any other reason, I don't see the difference between that and any other religion, any other person who's ever been martyred for anything.
Well, because these people witnessed an empirical event, a resurrection. There's nothing in Islam that says that is equivalent to what Christianity says. Christianity is basing their belief on an empirical event, that a man died after predicting he'd rise from the dead, and then he really did rise from the dead.
Yeah. So there's no other religion like that. A man claiming that he's God, predicting that he would die, dying, and then rising from the dead. And in the whole backbone, the whole livelihood of Christianity rests in the fact, did he really rise from the dead or did he not? I think there's enough proof to rest in comfort that he did.
Yeah, and I think you could say that
So what's your explanation then? Hallucinations? Wrong tomb? What is it?
I wasn't there, but that's a great thing. That's why I think I don't have to believe in it, because I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened. But that's why I don't feel a necessary, feel like I'm compelled to believe in that.
No, no one's compelled. You have free will. You go in the direction you want. But let me ask you this, Delaney. If Christianity really was true, would you become a Christian?
I don't think it's true, and I don't think it
No,
will
if
be.
it was.
I don't think it's a good question, honestly. I don't think it is true.
So the answer is no. Okay. If I gave you a book, would you read it?
Sure, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't think it's not fiction. I don't see. I think there's a lot of things.
Let me just.
God bless her, man. She's stubborn. She's stubborn at heart, but he's being patient with her. She's very stubborn.
Ask you one more question,
Sure.
Delaney.
Not because she doesn't believe in Christianity, but he's just asking a simple question, a direct question.
I appreciate you bringing this up, but why would you not possibly want, if there is a God, him to offer you paradise by taking anything you've done wrong upon himself? Why would you not want a being like that to offer you forgiveness and paradise?
I think that's a very interesting question because I've always been of the opinion that I don't want there to be an afterlife. I find no comfort in it. I find more comfort in there being empty, black nothingness, genuinely. And I'm not saying this to be contrarian or to be, provocative. Genuinely, I think that is more comforting than living in this eternal limbo or whatever. People describe it as perfect happiness. I'm not sure, first of all, I don't see evidence for that. Second of all, I'm not sure I want that. Furthermore, I'm not sure that I would want to be there when I know people are, according to your religion, suffering somewhere else. If I know that, one of my friends who sinned for whatever reason is burning in hell forever and I'm just hanging out in heaven, I don't think that would be perfect happiness. I don't think I really want that. So I really do not honestly see what is compelling people to want there to be an afterlife, to want there to be.
So if you're a friend,
Let's just relish in what she said. She said that she gets comfort and she's okay with it being just deep, dark nothingness and blackness after she dies. Now, this is where atheism kind of breaks down because that right there is a product of atheism not really being rooted in something that is, or is pretty much foundationless. Because when you peel the onion back enough, you realize the fact that what she just said is a product of having a worldview where you believe there's really, at the end of the day, there's really no meaning to it. And you can't really honestly, logically convince me, although she's saying it out of her mouth, and you got to take her word for it, but you can't convince me that she really does believe that she would be okay with it being nothing but blackness and nothingness. And the reason I say that is because no matter what you believe and no matter your worldview, we are conditioned as human beings to want to live another day. Despite people, you may have exclusions where people are, mentally ill and they want to end their lives and things like that. But the people I know who tried to commit suicide and failed, the things that I've seen, and I have people I know that have tried to commit suicide. And what do they do when they don't succeed with that? They always regret it. You can't convince me that you really would be okay with nothing but nothingness. Because if you can, if by that logic, you would be okay if you were to just get shot and start to bleed out. You'd just be like, it's whatever. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I guarantee if her life was on the line and she was on her deathbed and somebody had a magic potion to say, hey, we could save your life right now, you don't have to die, I guarantee she'd take it. You can't convince me that she really believes that. It's just that with atheism, I believe God's word to be true. It says that man's heart can be so hardened that she could admit to saying something like that. That's crazy.
as you put it, is literally burning in hell, what would your friend want you to choose?
I don't know if they could think right now because they'd probably be burning, as y'all say.
No,
but
if they are conscious and they know you're still here, what choice would they want you to make?
well, they'd probably want me to, be in heaven. But guess what? That's what I wouldn't feel comfortable knowing that my friend is still burning there.
Okay,
Doesn't matter
well,
what they think.
what you've just done is you've said exactly what C.S. Lewis said.
And what was that?
C.S. Lewis said that there's only two kinds of people in the end: those who say to God, thy will be done, and those to whom God says, thy will be done. If you don't want Jesus now, you're not going to want him in eternity. You will be separated from him, and that's what hell is.
So you think I'm going to hell?
Sure.
All right.
If Christianity's true, you just said you don't want to go to heaven. What else is there? There's only two possible options. You're either going to be with Jesus in the afterlife or you're not. What other option is there?
Well, I think there's the option that you're wrong, personally.
Well, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
You're right.
Absolutely
So,
be wrong.
yeah, it's
But
okay.
Absolutely.
but you talked about looking at evidence. How?
But it's he could be wrong, but she could be wrong. And I would say, who's taking a bigger gamble? It would be her. If that really is true, right? Because every atheist that I've talked to, I've gotten a lot of them to admit, and they've admitted it to me, that, you know what, if I am wrong, that's one of the silliest things ever, that I would choose not to be in glory for the rest of my life. And it's ultimately you that's making the decision.
How can there even be evidence in a world that there is no God, there is no organizer, there is no mind behind all this? Evidence, we wouldn't even exist. Nothing would exist. Reason wouldn't exist unless there's a mind that has given us the laws of reason and minds to know evidence.
Respectfully, I think we've jumped a few steps ahead in the argument there.
No, we jumped way back. Before we even get to the New Testament, we've got to establish why can we even know what evidence is, and why is this an orderly universe to even know what is true and what isn't.
Absolutely. I think it's due to science. It's due to the wonderful, physics, how the universe came to be. Yes, I do think it started. No, I do not think it was God. No,
What was it?
I think it was physics.
But physics had a beginning.
No, there are indeed physical theories nowadays.
So it was just physics, right? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, how does physics explains things? Like, how did the thing that physics is trying to explain get here? Yeah, it was just physics.
That propose how the universe started without a God. And my question for you actually would be, where did God come from? How did God start?
Well,
If
by
everything is
definition, there has to be a first cause. Either the universe is the uncaused first cause, or something outside the universe is the uncaused first cause. And all the evidence.
God is the greatest I am. He has no beginning. He has no end. He just is. That's who he is.
Evidence shows that the universe had a beginning. If the universe had a beginning, there must be something outside the universe that is spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, and intelligent to cause the universe to have a beginning. You can't go on an infinite regress of causes. I hope you agree with that.
No, I agree, but I think you've actually just assumed, though, that you've just assumed right there that there is something outside of it, that there has to be, you've assumed in your argument there has to be something outside, immaterial. I don't believe that.
If the material world had a beginning, there's got to be something immaterial that brought it into existence, correct?
No, I think we just have the material world, and that's it.
Well, the evidence doesn't show that.
I think actually the evidence
No, it doesn't.
does.
Sorry.
Just the material. So love is just a material thing, right? Like, you crying because somebody died is just material, right? Like, materialist, you living in such a confined worldview there, man. It runs into so many different roadblocks.
All right, just thank you, Delaney.
I
appreciate it.
that. Thank you.
All right, God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, appreciate her for, being honest and being open, but God bless her heart. God bless her heart. I mean, to say that, even if you don't believe in God, right? To say that if you die, you would hope that there's just nothingness. You wouldn't even hope that there's like some paradise or some, reincarnation, come back as a cow or something. But that's the void. That's the void that foundationless worldviews have. That's the void. And it's very sad to hear somebody say that. Very sad. Man.
Hello and welcome to Stars, Cells, and God. My name is Hugh Ross. I'm an astrophysicist and the founder of Reasons to Believe. And today I'm joined by my colleague and friend, Fuz Rana, who's a biochemist and the current president of Reasons to Believe. And we got some amazing scientific discoveries to talk to you about. I'm going to be talking about a new advance in fine-tuning that points to the fine-tuner that we see in the Bible, the discovery of chemical habitable zones. And Fuz, you got an amazing discovery on convergence. But as I looked at your description, at least in my opinion, I think this is the most spectacular convergence discovery ever. So I'm really anxious to see what you got to say about it. So take it away.
I want to start by telling a story. Maybe it's a bit of a true confession that'll hopefully set the stage for really the larger debate taking place among evolutionary biologists that this discovery relates to. But my wife and I play couples bunco. I don't know if I want to admit to that or not because it hurts my street cred. But for the last 20 plus years, we've been gathering together with 5 other couples once a month, and we play bunco. And in fact, this group that we're part of has been playing bunco since 1998. So
wow.
We're latecomers to the party, so to speak. But, you know, if anybody knows anything about bunco, it's a dice game. And the outcome of the game is completely random. So for every game, you're at a table with 3 other people, and you have a partner. So there's 2 teams. And because it's based on dice rolls, it's totally random, the outcome. So there's a 50% chance you're going to win, 50% chance you're going to lose. But in the course of an evening, there are people that win more games than they lose and people that lose more games than they win. And it's because you have a relatively small sample size. But over time, if you play bunco on a regular basis, you should basically win half the games and lose half the games. And in fact, we actually did an experiment.
I knew you were keeping score, Fuz.
Well, we actually had an accountant that was part of the group for a while, and we convinced him to keep a tally of everybody's wins and losses. And every month we took a look at it. And eventually, I think about 1.5 years into it, everybody's results more or less converged.
On 50%.
50%.
Yeah.
And so it basically shows that even though each dice roll is random, every game is random, that over time, the outcome is actually predictable. There's a predictability to the outcomes for bunco. Now, this has bearing on a debate that's taking place among evolutionary biologists, which is, are evolutionary outcomes happen chance or are they actually predictable? And for a number of years, most evolutionary biologists would say, look, the evolutionary process is unguided, it's undirected, there's no directionality to it, there's no purpose, that it's historically contingent, meaning that it's predicated on a sequence of chance events, and the outcome is going to be different every time the evolutionary process unfolds, that you don't expect repeatability. And the idea is that, you know, because every event is chance with regard to changes in the genetic material, changes in the environment, that, you know, if you rewound the tape of life and replayed it, the outcome would be different every time, right? Now, there's another group that is starting to argue that, wait a minute, evolutionary outcomes are actually predictable, that there is a directionality to the evolutionary process. There are end goals that seem to be predictable, that evolution is going to attain time and time again. And they are arguing that there are two bases for this predictability. One is that the laws of nature only allow.
What do you guys think about evolution, man? You think that's how this all got here or not? I mean, curious.
Certain outcomes, only certain biological shapes or forms are actually permissible. Others, though may exist hypothetically, are actually not possible. And that they also argue that the environment can also create such a strong influence that there's only certain biological designs that are going to fit a particular environment. And those two factors can drive evolution to the same endpoint time and time again. And so even though each evolutionary event is considered random, and when a biologist says an event is random, what they mean is that the genetic changes are taking place irrespective of what's happening in the environment, right? That even though individual events are random, the outcome is actually over time predictable from an evolutionary standpoint. Now, why does this even matter, right, about this debate, apart from it being an interesting debate about the fundamental nature of evolution? Well, one particular approach to evolution, one where it's historically contingent, where the outcomes are happenstance, really views evolution as anti-teleological. There's no directionality, there's no intent, there's no purpose. The other view, in which states evolution is predictable, says, well, there actually is a predetermined, prescribed outcome, that there's a...
Yeah, I would say me as a Christian, I would just hearing this, I would fall under the anti-theological. So I would obviously believe in it being some direction towards evolution. That's fascinating, though.
That the evolutionary process is teleological, it's directional, there seems to be a purpose. Now, why that's important to us is because as old earth creationists, we argue that when we look at life's history, we clearly see evidence for God's intervention. We see a history of life that looks as if it's been divinely orchestrated towards a purpose, towards an end goal. And as old earth creationists, we're skeptical about the capacity of evolutionary mechanisms to explain biology. Well, there are people that hold to an old earth view who argue that God used evolution as a way to create, right? This is evolutionary creationism or theistic evolution. We've always been uncomfortable with that view because the way evolutionary biologists understood evolution was it was historically contingent. If evolution is anti-teleological, that doesn't look like a mechanism that God would use to create. Now, evolutionary creationists that we know will say, well, maybe what seems to be random to us is actually not random at all. Or maybe God's working through quantum indeterminacies in ways that are invisible to us. Well, that's problematic because it makes God deceptive, and it means that God is hidden from us. And yet Scripture tells us that God doesn't lie. Scripture tells us that when we look at nature, we see clear evidence for God's fingerprints. So if God
doesn't hide.
Yes.
Yeah.
If God is using evolution, it ought to be evident that this is a divinely orchestrated process, not something that it appears to be random, but in fact isn't. Right.
Well, if I could summarize this.
Now, what type of evolution are we talking about? Is it micro or macro? Because if you concede that evolution is real, which I believe in microevolution, species adapting over time, but I don't believe in macro, where you can have chimpanzees evolving into full-blown human beings, or you can have species evolve into other species. I don't believe in that. So I kind of want to know where the direction goes or where the conversation goes when it regards that.
Sounds like the debate is, okay, there's a God that's driving this directionality, but another group is saying it's the laws of physics and changes in the environment that's driving it. I remember reading Stephen Jay Gould's works when he was active. He's dead now, but he was making the point, yes, There are people in evolutionary biology that are saying what's driving the apparent directionality are the laws of physics and the environment. But he argued that, well, that's a factor. Those are two factors. He was arguing that they're trivial. They really don't do much
Right.
To direct things. So the real debate is it God that's directing it, or is it the laws of physics and the environment that's directing it? And I think everybody agrees the laws of physics and the environment is a factor. The question is it a trivial factor, like Stephen Gould argued, or is it such a big factor that we can take God out of the picture?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, that's a great way to summarize it. That's a great point. And as time has gone on, the number of examples of what appears to be predictability to evolution are mounting. And some of this evidence is coming in the form of a phenomena called convergence, which is the idea that evolutionary outcomes converge on the same endpoint time and time again. And so if you're viewing life in evolutionary terms, then it means that the different evolutionary lineages wind up finding the same solution to the...
That's fascinating. I want to come back to that. This convo is a little boring, though. I'm not going to cap to you. Let's move on, man. That one was a little... putting me to sleep a little bit. So, let's move on. Yeah, evolution is always...
One of the
It's always
reasons that
It's always a debate, man. I mean, like I said, I believe in like microevolution, but the whole species like evolving into other species and all that stuff like that, nah. I had this video I wanted to react to, but I can't get to it right now, so we gonna hop back. By the way, man, I'm up late right now. I don't know if you guys on the East Coast, West Coast, but yeah, man, me starting a YouTube channel, my everyday to day life, I'm always having these conversations, and I like to have them in a friendly way. I'm not a Christian that's gonna Bible thump you and stuff the Bible down your throat. I really want to talk about things logically. And yeah, by the way, I appreciate you guys for rocking out with the channel, man. I really do.
Energy traveling at one. So the shroud is not a death cloth, it's a resurrection cloth. 34 billion watts of energy traveling at 1/40th of a billionth of a second to leave an image on the shroud.
actually, I want to get to this. So tell me, like, all right, that's the question. So if it's not dye,
Or
what's your
pigment
theory
paint.
on how did the image even get on this shroud?
This is where I got shroud red pilled. This is where I became a
Oh,
shroudie.
let's go. Come on.
Best scientists
Yo, Shroud Red Pill is crazy, bro.
in the world. And let me be clear, I've met with many of these scientists. I'm talking about weapons scientists. I'm talking about rocket scientists. I met one when we were doing our tour event in Southern California from the Jet Propulsion Lab. He's like, oh yeah, everything you said's accurate. He was working on the Mars project. And these are scientists, Eric Jumper, John Jackson, physicists who are at Los Alamos Sandia Laboratories. They work on atom bombs. They get the weekend with the shroud, and they prove that there's literally no paint, no dye, no brush marks. they cannot understand how there is an image in the shroud. The best scientists in the world cannot explain it. So I fly to Turin, Italy, and I meet with a guy named Paulo de Lazzaro. He is a physicist, and he works at ENEA Laboratories. Anyone can look this up. He spends another 5 years of his life studying how do you change, with no pigment, paint, dye, or brush marks, how do you change a made of flax, essentially, a linen shroud. So they literally grew a shroud, and they beamed their laser for 5 years at it, and they were finally able to basically change the coloring of and to leave a mark with that, because otherwise you would scorch it. If it's too hot, it's too powerful to just burn it up, right? They were able to basically change the size of a postage stamp, not 14 feet behind us, and he publishes. And this went viral when I posted it on my social. 34 billion watts of energy traveling at 1/40th of a billionth of a second to leave an image on the shroud, is what Paulo de Lazzaro said.
Light.
So we're talking about energy, cold energy, and this is the moment of
So if none of you guys know the Shroud of Turin, the Shroud of Turin is this phenomenon that has sparked debate for a very long time, and what it is obviously theologians obviously concede that Jesus Christ existed and he died and he was crucified, right? What the Shroud of Turin is this image that looks like what people would say was from the time period of Jesus. There's been a lot of speculation on, is it real? Was it from that time period? Was it not? Is it made up? I'm always trying to approach things with skepticism, as I believe we all should. So I haven't dug that much into the Shroud of Turin, but from what I have seen, I think it's like a toss-up. It's like 50-50, but it's fascinating to see what he's saying about this.
resurrection. So the shroud is not a death cloth, it's a resurrection cloth.
Wow.
So I'm meeting with Paulo, and I'm like, so are you saying it's Jesus? He's like, well, of course. 34 billion watts of energy traveling at 1/40th of a billionth of a second. Reminds me of all these passages. Because think about it, Jesus, every time he manifests himself in the New Testament, he manifests himself as brilliant light. The new heaven and the new earth someday will have no need for the sun.
That's significant. I just want
Mark
to point that out
9.
for listeners. Yeah. Trace that real quick.
Okay,
Because
throughout-
you got transfiguration.
I see where he's going. He's basically saying that for them to get an image on this shroud in our modern day, we'd have to have so much technology and like light beams hitting it. But for a man to have to do that, he'd have to be some sort of transcendent being to do that. I mean, I can see that. You'd have to be a Christian to get somebody to believe that. But yeah, wow, that's fascinating.
His face was changed, became like lightning.
Mark
Obviously,
9.
Yep. You got Revelation.
Yep.
Same
but
thing.
you have Paul, and I have filmed on Roman roads at noonday, okay, and in the land of Israel, curbed, they're first century roads. It's hot. I'm sweating. Paul says that he has an experience of seeing the resurrected Christ, and if you follow the book of Acts, he says it was brighter than the noonday sun. Is anyone getting chills yet? So what we have in this residue, what we have is this signature on the shroud of the moment of Jesus' resurrection that is so powerful, it literally left a selfie mark on it.
Gracious.
This is Jesus.
That's fascinating. If the Shroud of Turin is actually the cloth that was over Christ. Now, I'm going to do, over the weeks, over the months, years, I'm going to do as much research as I can on the Shroud of Turin. But from what I've seen so far, it's a toss-up. I mean, it sounds good. And I'm following him. Like, that's fascinating. My God, Jesus, believing brain is just like, yeah, it wants to believe that. But we got to find some evidence on that.
Jesus' selfie.
Wow.
So the theory is that in
At
the
that
same
moment.
in the same way that at the transfiguration, hey,
Yep.
his face
Boom.
became like lightning. It kind of the hey, upon resurrection, that same light of glory manifested itself and left that. That's the
and it pushed a 2,750-pound tomb out of the way.
gracious.
Wow.
But let me show you. This is animated. Okay, so play this for a minute.
You damn right. That tomb, man. People talking about it was the disciples that went in there and stole a body and moved that tomb out the way. That was Jesus.
I want you to see. This is a shroud. Now hit play.
Okay.
Boom.
Wow.
So
That
that's
is
the-
what happened. That's
Huh.
slow motion.
Huh.
So Jesus didn't like stand up like Lazarus and take his grave clothes off. His body emanated at the moment of resurrection through the shroud.
What makes you say that?
There it is. Look.
And by emanated, Jeremiah, you mean
Literally physically. Well, because Jesus
Disappeared?
could appear in rooms and then disappear.
Yeah, he
If
walks
you
through the
read-
door.
His
So that
body has new capability.
Yeah, we have that in the Bible, obviously. Like, he appeared in rooms. But again, if we're going to jump and say this with the shroud, we first have to, like, prove that that really was the cloth over Christ. You know? And I'm only approaching this with skepticism because do we have enough evidence to say that that was the cloth over Christ? I think it can go either way.
Yeah.
As ours will in the resurrection. It is not, this world does not have any control over him anymore. And so I thought he would like stood up and pulled off. No. So when John, does anyone have a Bible? John
I got
20.
one.
We need to look at John 20, 5 through 8. So we created this. Shout out to Stargate Studios in Malta. So this is what John would have seen
I got
in
John.
Peter. So John 20, 5 through 8. Can you read that?
Yeah, verse 5, and stooping to look in, he saw the linen cloths lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came following him and went into the tomb. He saw the linen cloth lying there, and the face cloth which had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen cloth, but folded up in a place by itself. Then the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went in, and he saw and believed.
He saw, and what did he see? The linen cloth.
Fascinating.
And you guys, this
Oh,
is
dude,
a-
I'm just putting this together. So you're saying he may have gone in and seen
That's what
the
he saw.
imprint.
Okay, so I just Googled it, right? I said, what's the best evidence to prove the Shroud of Turin is real? And it says, superficial image formation. The image is not painted, dyed, or burned using heat. The discoloration affects only the outermost fibers of the linen threads without penetrating the cloth. Scientists have no proven explanation for how an image with this exact property was created. Now that is incredibly fascinating. Three-dimensional data. When analyzed with specialized imaging tools, the image exhibits encoded 3D information, meaning the shading corresponds to the distance the cloth was from the body. This rules out typical contact imprints or artist rendering. So it's basically not a fabricated or created image. Man, that's fascinating, man. That's fascinating, man.
Print on the.
And I believe it was still glowing.
Huh.
Now, this is speculative, okay?
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is not his, I haven't proven this. I'm working on an article on it right now. Because he goes to the tomb early. There's no electricity. I mean, this is an animation. I mean, I doubt that the sun would have reached it because they would have gone down into the tomb. I've been again in tombs. This was a rock-hewn tomb. I've been in the actual tomb. We wouldn't have had sunlight like that coming in. I believe the face of Jesus was still glowing on it when he saw it. Why
Interesting.
else?
Think about
What
the
else
verse.
does he see and
Think
believe?
about that verse. To give them the ability to see the light of the knowledge of the glory of
Yes.
God in the face of Jesus Christ.
Dude,
The light. I'm going to say that one more time. The light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ.
Wow.
I had never seen that before. It was not until chronologically they saw. So this, and then I do want to clear, this may be one of your tough questions for me, but I want to clear something up. There are so many fine Christians, and I've gotten this email 1,000 times. That's why I wrote it in my book. So they say, Jeremiah, John's gospel said linen strips, plural, and they think that Jesus is a mummy. They think that he was mummified. So let me clear this up to help fine Christians like me who get confused by this. If we didn't have John's gospel, the only word that's used is sinden, which is behind us. Fine linen cloth, singular. John's gospel gives us the face cloth, sudarium, which we can talk about, but then it also uses this term athonia, that's plural. So I want you to see we see strips around the singular shroud at the head, the feet. I was leading a tour recently with a bunch of college kids, and they all take pictures of themselves asleep, with their mouth open, and then post them at each other and bully each other and all that. So they actually would do that. There's a jaw band. They just to dignify the body. So when you're dead, you're not like, they would actually. So Athonia would have been probably there as well.
That's where the strips.
Yes, that's where the strips come from. So we're not doing anything unbiblical here. We're actually exegeting the scriptures.
Wow.
We're letting scripture interpret scripture. The four gospels. So the answer is yes to all four gospels, and that's what he would have seen, which is so helpful.
Okay, so like I was looking at this book. By the way, this is great.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, for listeners, title of the book is The Jesus Discoveries, 10 Historic Finds That Bring Us Face to Face with Jesus. Pretty recently published, right?
Yeah, like in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you.
Well, already looking at it.
Congratulations.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
We'll stick it in the show notes, and I think we'll have some copies in the bookstore.
Thank you.
So you got this thing on page, it's on page 30.
This is the probability. This blew my mind,
Okay,
bro.
so this is insane. So talk me through, and don't we have this?
Yes,
do
we do.
have the probability thing?
Yeah, there are the two slides
find
right there, 20 different wound patterns that match the crucifixion narratives embedded in the Gospels. I want to share something with you. The most evidence that we have from antiquity about crucifixion comes from four sources: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Okay? Crucifixion was so agonizing and so irrelevant to the Roman Empire because no Roman citizen was crucified. So we actually, the best description we have from antiquity of crucifixion are the four Gospels.
Fascinating.
Wow.
Tacitus doesn't really get into it, Suetonius, Dio Cassius, Josephus a little bit, but as far as the description of crucifixion, also this is why
Yeah, he really seems to be a subject matter expert on this. If that's real, all that stuff lines up with what the Bible say. I believe it. I believe the shroud of turn is real. I believe it. I'm on record saying it now. We gotta have a lot of evidence come out on this, but it's fascinating, man.
if we want to invent a religion, we would have never invented it the way the gospel writers did. I have an article, or I have a chapter in my book.
I don't easily believe things too, by the way. I don't easily do. But it's incredible.
Book Body of Proof, what the gospel writers should have done better if they were inventing a false narrative rather than a real one. Because everything they said flew in the face of what the Roman mindset would have accepted. And so look at this. Look at the scourge marks. You can see it, the feet wounds. There's that side wound I was pointing out, the blood angle, the wrists, the elongated arms, the wound pattern. There's those shoulder abrasions, Josh. Do you see those right there from carrying the patibulum on the left?
Yeah, top left.
Yep.
Yeah.
His body is in rigor mortis. This is important, actually. So he's probably in the tomb 39 hours.
Rigor mortis, yeah. That would make sense. That would actually make sense with him being dead.
That's Mark 12:40. They say, give us a sign. He says, I'm going to give you one sign. I'm going to give you the sign of Jonah, my resurrection from the dead. So Jesus' body does not decay. There's no decay on the shroud. So rigor mortis usually lasts 39 to 45 hours.
What does that mean, Jeremiah?
Rigor mortis is when your body stiffens. And so his body would have been
It's when the muscles stiffen right after you die.
very stiff. That's why we even can see that, like, the buttocks is even like, I mean, it's like he's flinching all over his body. His muscles are tight because his head is elevated. His knees are up because his body is in rigor mortis at the moment of his resurrection. And there's no bodily decay oozing on the shroud. My body will not see decay.
Wow.
Sacrifices and offerings you did not require, but a body you prepared for me. So there's no bodily decay on the shroud. And so that's what we see. So now let's go to the probability. So fast forward, Barbarus. I'm in Turin, and I have to meet this mathematician named Bruno Barbarus.
There's a name.
All the credit to him. And the irony of his last name, Barbarus, is not lost on me at all this Easter weekend. He did a calculation. He is a mathematician. He has been with the actual shroud over 100 times. Like, if the president of Italy wants to see the shroud, Bruno shows you the shroud. He's given 4,000 lectures on the shroud. He's a mathematician. He doesn't have a theological axe to grind. He assigned this probability that when you look at the all of the correspondence of how the man of the shroud is crucified, and you compare it to what we see in the Gospels, he gives it a probability of 1 in 200 billion that it is not Jesus.
Wow.
Gracious.
Wow.
So this is on my YouTube channel. Like I'm from Kansas. You're from Kentucky. I'm from
Damn.
Kansas. I'm like, so
Damn. So he basically saying that it's him. God damn.
Professor Barbaros, are you saying it's Jesus? I write about this in the book, and he almost gets frustrated. And he's Italian. He's like, how can it not be?
He actually does this. Yeah.
He said the numbers.
Josh would like him a lot.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
That's what I'm going to
He's
say.
like, the numbers force me to believe it's him. Of course it is.
Wow.
I was like, oh, I feel stupid for asking that, but thank you. He said, didn't you hear me? 1 in 200 billion chance it's not.
Is he a believer?
Yes. A devout believer.
Because he's not. Because he's a rational man, right?
A rational man.
That's
And
right.
so that's why I said at the beginning, I believe the shroud is authentically the shroud of Jesus, because I'm not irrational. I know a lot more about the shroud than I do how my car will work to drive me home today.
Maybe that's what it is for me. Maybe I don't know enough about it. I'm trying to learn more about it, but this sounds fascinating. I just briefly overviewed it, and I knew that obviously, like anything, it's gonna go both ways. But the hearing what he's saying, how he's lining up with the infliction points in the Bible, and how I read off that information about it basically scientifically proving that it's not a fabricated image on that piece of fabric. That's fascinating, man. Damn, that's crazy. I want to learn more about this. I'm going to definitely check his book out, too. Wow.
And I have no problem getting in the car and driving home. I have no clue how the air conditioning works, the transmission. I know some of our audience does, but I know a lot more about the shroud.
All right, go back to this real quick.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything you're going to point out here? Can I ask a question?
Go right ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
So, like, okay, but what about this? Like, what I'm assuming people would say is, yeah, man, but like, somebody would just read the gospel accounts, and they would know what to put into the shroud,
Right.
to match the, so it's marksman's error.
Right,
You see what I'm saying?
exactly. Yeah,
They would have
for
known
sure.
what to do, so the probability thing doesn't work.
But the cumulative data that you would have to add to that then is, okay, you would have to actually crucify someone to do that. They would have to have type AB blood. They would have to have pollen from the 1st century. You'd have to have a side wound in the exact spot between rib 5 and 6. Another.
Oh, there's a side wound on the Shroud of Turin, too? Where they stabbed Jesus in the side? No way, bro. Dang. I feel like I'm a juror on a homicide case, but the facts is lining up. Dang, I wasn't there, but it sounded convincing.
Other thing that people would definitely get wrong if you're a hoaxer is you would have made Jesus much shorter. Because people often say, oh, people were only about 5'1". The women were like 4'11". We actually have people crucified taller than Jesus in Jerusalem from the reign of Pontius Pilate, the tomb of Yehohanan. I think he was 6'11", something like that, 6'6" to 6'11". So the fact that Jesus is 5'10" to 5'11", according to this, you wouldn't have made that up. You wouldn't have known that. You would have actually.
Nah, come on, give Jesus 1 more inch, man. He's 6 feet around here, man. Come on, man. He's not 5'11". He's 6 foot. Probably was 6'2".
Actually guessed wrongly. So again, all of the cumulative data is easy to respond to that and just say, well, no, actually, and again, no one else crucified their victims this way. You would have probably been more influenced by the fact that there would be no crucifixion, there would be no crown of thorns. His legs would have been broken. It would not have lined out this
and
way.
I'm a dumb Kentucky kid, but I'm even thinking here for a second. All right, so like, if the theory the skeptics have is this thing was created in like the 1300s.
1260 to 1390 based on carbon dating.
Okay, I'll get to that in a second. I'll get to that in a second. You're beating me to the punch here. So, and what you said is if somebody had done that, then they would have based all of this on medieval art. And to your point earlier, all medieval art, for instance, with the crown of thorns.
Yes.
All medieval art makes it like a wreath.
And through the palms.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
All of that.
And that's right. But on the shroud, it's a helmet. So there's things like that. It's like, man,
and he has a long beard. He has long hair. He has a beard that's been plucked in the front.
Okay. So don't you have something about the face?
Yes. Okay. So these are all what we call the icons. These are all, and that's just a fancy word for paintings of Jesus that are very old. The Christ Pantocrator one in the top right corner is the most famous. That's at St. Catherine's Monastery. That dates to the mid 6th century, so 550, something like that.
Top right.
Top right of what we're looking at. So all of these look the same to me. They all, and there's over 200, by the way. I couldn't fit them all in one slide. But what is the source material that all these people are using for the shroud or for the face of Jesus? Let's pull it up now, bro.
How would they know?
They had to have source material before the 6th century, and they all match this. And dude, I've got some more show and tell. Now this is super crazy what I have right now.
Okay.
This you have to go over to the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul to see, but mine's better than the one they have there.
Come on, man.
I've got a Roman solidus in my hand. It's solid gold. It's from the late 7th century.
What?
I want you to look at the face.
Can you tell which one of us is real and which one of us is AI? How about now? Does
My
this look
bad,
real to
y'all.
you? If you thought
No
I was
YouTube
AI,
Premium.
then you'd be right. And if you thought I was AI,
No
then
YouTube
you'd
Premium.
also.
That is,
Holy cow.
What does that look like?
It looks like
Bring
that.
it back. Yeah.
Looks just like that.
So
Wait, is there a way for me to hold this up on the camera somehow?
That's fascinating. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna subscribe to this guy, man. Yeah,
A
let's
real
find this-
guy. Dot on a.
That's fascinating. His name is Jeremiah Johnston. So he got a YouTube channel. Jeremiah Johnston. Y'all check him out. Wow. What do you guys think about the Shroud of Turin? You guys done research on that? That's fascinating, man. That's incredible. That's crazy. But yeah, that'll conclude the first live. I definitely want to hop on here more weekly and just connect with you guys and talk about this information. Wow. See you guys.